Emotional storm or sacred rain. The upcoming super full moon in Aries invites us to face the storms within any cycles of disillusionment, endings, and shifts that now demand our attention. A call to reclaim our sovereignty by recognizing that inner turbulence and the external cyclone of consciousness can ignite the sacred flame of our authentic power, provided we place ourselves at the center of it. Amid the chaos and collective change, reflecting and releasing old structures by stepping fully into our own light. Honoring our personal leadership, embracing uncompromising authenticity, and rising from the challenges that have tested us. Not with regret, but the unapologetic courage of our own awareness. I'm not sure how to bring it all together because I am looking at what has happened externally rather than integrating the heartfelt sorry needed from myself for overcomplicating things. Trying to include every aspect of my own awareness, creating a deep embodiment of wisdom gained that is worthy of sharing, or rabbit holes of reality, depending on the view. There have been times when I've nearly lost all direction, distracted by the collective shifts occurring at a rate that has been difficult to witness, let alone make sense of. In all honesty, it has taken some much needed reflection and streamlining back to what has led me to this point. Not in the messages being received or choices I've made throughout the years, despite a culmination of them over the last few weeks, but an objective decision from Archangel Sandalphon regarding how I wish to now continue. In the form of a song, or rather 3, Meet Me Halfway, I See Fire, and the regretful words of Purple Rain, for this month's full moon theme. Choosing the latter, I'm aware any movement will not come from compromise alone, regardless how it may seem and the level of its desire, or even the sacred rage of the collective perspective. But in the compassion and subsequent shift of focus, we are all being guided to take responsibility for, from within. To raise our hands to the many projected insights regarding order of late, from less than constructive leaders through to potential changes in our monarchy. Consorting instead with what appears to be a global call for self-agency. That with identities taking on new yet familiar forms towards elderhood, will undoubtedly threaten the ego, beyond that of digital natures, as we too are returned to the source of all change that must be questioned. The mental air of hereditary hierarchy, through our own illumination or lack of. Encouraging us post-eclipse to research for the soul light we came here to not only share, but be guided by. October will contain palpable repetition in the energy needed to do so. All the time we trust outside teachings and governance over our own. From pre-COVID demands or restrictions potentially returning with different rationales, physical routines not adhered to and their consequences, through to traumas rising regarding loss, endings, change, and how we navigate completion itself, this month will invite us to ultimately face everything that has prevented divine direction, our own shadows included, for an opportunity to prioritize who will lead us into 2026, both on the individual and collective stage. Despite current trends, my own included, the truth is if we can let go of rigid ideas of how things should be, we can appreciate what they actually are, and from here, create lasting evolution. By embodying the less is more mentality necessary to restore any imbalances. Prioritizing with ease and grace the space required to embrace a more regal timing. In the acceptance that with each experience we are being supported to acknowledge a life beyond roles, stories, or history, to the reorganization of self-actualization for the foundational basic need it has always been. Simply by admitting what, or rather who, has endangered and ironically exposed this. From behind the pain of indecisions, the cycles of disillusionment, wounded loss, or expectations, to ourselves. If we are to allow what is being destroyed to create permission for much needed, unapologetic sovereignty. Something we will all, in our own unique ways, encounter with this week's full moon in Aries. During what is set to be a time of great change, as old structures, beliefs, and frames of reference are cleared, none more so than our own, to make way for a new inspiration. Not through a different perspective, but regaining the vision that has always been present, by allowing in more of our own light without blocking the shadows to why we may not. Meaning we can expect to see many things play out at times on loop, until we realize it is our responses that will bring the transformation we seek. Ruled by Mars, the planet of passion and action, the anticipation of heightened emotions, impulsiveness, and yearning for something different is currently electrifying, causing torrential turmoil internally, reflected in the many changing climates we find ourselves experiencing. Bringing a sense of urgency in career and professional endeavours, this lunar flood of energy is set to highlight the courage required to move through obstacles by not only embracing the challenges for the risk-taking available, but acknowledging what is at the centre of the storm. The calm within us all, needed to weather it. Important to distinguish between facts and common misconceptions, it is only in reflecting on individual patterns and taking time to assess personal growth we can align any self-expression for the action, rather than outburst it has the potential to form. Known as the Hunter's Moon, we are being reminded to consider how we honour ourselves in relationships and the impact this has, particularly on our bodies, leadership skills, and initiation, as we observe any beginnings or endings we may be avoiding. Longed-for harmony comes from meeting personal needs and others with autonomy, and companionability over codependency, as on the 13th, Pluto stations and turns direct, having been retrograde since early May, retrieving a stronger focus on ambition and empowerment through the ability to create sustainable changes in a more direct, less internal insistence. On the 21st, the new moon in Libra prompts equilibrium through the energetic charge over situations that will continue to demand our attention, especially those of a negating, partnering nature, suggesting we keep the resolution of conflict as our main focus and objective through any ambition we may have. Squaring Jupiter and Pluto, exaggeration and excess may be mindfully managed if we are to seek new starts, because dictating them will not achieve our goals any sooner. Instead, with Mercury moving from Libra to Scorpio in time for the full moon, we would be better aligned for introspection of the hidden aspects of our lives and what they may be communicating. Reviewing past decisions and double-checking all information, with previously unresolved concerns continuing to rise for healing and closure, not through their removal but compassionate integration, we will be gradually more exposed to methods to manage our emotions in a creative way, as Neptune retrogrades back into Pisces by the 22nd until January 2026 for its last visit. Turning direct on the 10th of December, granting an audience with our soul's potential to ensure we are still ignited by who we are and who we came here to be. It is this vision that will ultimately take precedence in the coming year ahead, supporting a statelier recognition through a blizzard of our own beliefs a day later with Jupiter Chiron square. We may find ourselves yearning for deeper meaning and understanding as we attempt to unite with more personal philosophies that authentically reflect our core. Whilst this could lead to an existential crisis of faith, the rites of passage our isolated initiation brings will help us to recognise where any opinions have left us unsupported in the perspective we have, as leaning into these experiences further strengthens our resolve, self-belief, and appreciation of purpose. But that does mean we're being guided to look within and rediscover our true needs, wants, and desires during this period, rather than mindlessly follow something or someone that no longer sustains our majestic morality. And if we wish to avoid overcompensation or stretching ourselves too thinly over the next few weeks, it is this imperial diligence that will serve us the most. With Venus moving through Virgo from the beginning of the month to the 23rd, any clarity can only be ordained through practical projects, financial decisions, alongside the refining of deepened bonds of mutual respect, shared values, and an undercurrent organisation or order over the often undermining fearful-based desire for control. Culminating around the upcoming full moon, which acts as an initiatory phase for the subsequent month's supermoons. With the Sun in Libra, we must balance self-assertion through the power of compromise, especially upon our own reflection, if we hope to receive any fertile relationships. Appreciating it is the hurricane of a harmonious humanity from within that empowers all union, be that with each other, the world being created, or ourselves. There is no escaping the effort required to maintain gracious connections in a society where more is more and yet somehow never enough. But it is each person's individual birthright to select what they concentrate on, as we are ever reminded of the responsibility of our own direction and in this internal leadership. Striking a discord between diplomacy and authenticity for many, any conflict will remain if we continue to neglect either. Occurring in the sign of Aries, this lunar intention is an emotional declaration of a personal nature, as we each regain a mutual ground between me and we. A moment of boldness that will bolt for some out of the blue a spark of recognition. There is a noble awareness in not allowing uncertainty to rush any decisions, however, particularly in the often thunderous momentum that will bring forth the clarity and clear skies that we seek, through introspection instead, adaptability, intention, and evaluation of our own progress. Reining in any new opportunities, we can ironically step fuller into our power by recognizing the leadership required in both our personal and professional lives through their united decisiveness. As we accept the consequences of our actions more humbly, acknowledging their cause and effect, be that on ourselves or relationships, the cyclone of consciousness we add to, or even the typhoon of timing needed to navigate the karmic crossroads we find ourselves in. With Mars, Aries ruling planet shifting into Sagittarius towards the end of the month, squaring the lunar nodes and trining Chiron, any boldly rising ancestral wounds around worth through our own determined visibility will bring with them a subsequent downpour of potent and liberating energy, provided we can shift how we take cover from frustration, restlessness, and dynamics that keep us small, towards agency, love, and the luminosity within us, making this quote-unquote bloody moon one of our greatest callings, back, with bravery, to question where we may have been reckless in our own boundaries, suppressed sacred rage to keep the peace, and lost sight of what it means to walk shamelessly towards who we came to be. Happening on the 7th of October in the UK at 4:48 a.m, crowned by the numerical frequencies of the Emperor, Chariot, Strength, Hermit, Wheel of Fortune, Hanged Man, Tower, Star, World, and Lovers card overall, linked to the Three of Wands in the Tarot. This cosmic, ceremonial occasion is a direct opportunity to look at where our choices may have been less than our potential, to avoid confrontation. For only in bowing to this inspiration of our own limitations can we experience the uniquely new rule available. Beyond the current doubt-serving intensity that would have us all sacrifice ourselves and the world we came here to create with routines and structures no longer viable, towards all we have discovered, as we acclimatize ourselves to the more synchronized, soul-led strength required to recognize regalia over more committed leadership, none more so than in the embodiment of the vision we claim to serve. May we all abdicate anything that prevents our own authenticity. In deepest munay, I ask you now, what have you got to be sorry for? You know where I am. Take care. Kirsty.